Welcome to this episode of the Martial Truth, Conditioning. But before we go forward with that, a couple of things. Once again, please consider becoming a subscriber to the channel. Please think about becoming a member. Membership's growing, subscribers are growing in leaps and bounds, which is great, helps the channel. Please click that like button and share the videos, okay? And comment, I like to see the comments. It helps me think possibly about future topics, all right? So think about that. Also, I will be conducting seminars January 18th to 21st, 18 to 21, 2024. That's a Thursday through Sunday in Long Island, New York, specifically in Floral Park at the Seishinkan East, my old dojo. I'll be doing on Thursday primarily Katori Shinto-ryu. On Friday, I'll be splitting it up, doing Mariyoshi Kobudo and then Sosuishido Jiu-Jitsu. Saturday will be Ishinryu Karate all day, and Sunday will be Chen-style Taiji Chuan practical method all day. All right, so if you're interested in attending, there'll be info down below on who to contact, which that'll be James Waller, and I'll have his contact info down below in the details. All right, okay. So now, conditioning. All right, so conditioning, my first idea of conditioning in martial arts was what I was introduced to in Ishinryu Karate, which we call Koteki Tai, which was basically 4 exercises where we strike the forearm in the middle of the forearm, in the first 3 exercises, and the 4th exercise, which is a push-down exercise, which is really a kakie exercise. Those were my first forays into martial arts conditioning exercises, all right? But let's talk about the term conditioning and what that means, both in general, in terms of combat, and in terms of martial arts training. So in terms of combat conditioning, you take 2 fighters, and boxing is a prime example, MMA is a prime example, that are equal in ability. And you might say, well, no one's equal in ability. Okay, let's say they're pretty close in ability. They're pretty equal, all right? You'll see this in boxing, all right? Now, again, there's a thing within boxing, even within MMA, where a particular style is difficult for another guy to beat. Let's take that out of the equation. Let's take 2 guys that are in there and giving it their all, give and take back and forth, all right? And they seem to be pretty evenly matched. What's going to more than likely decide the outcome? All things being equal, the superior conditioned fighter will win. So if your conditioning is lacking, okay, you're going to have a very difficult time staying in the fight, all right? Fighters like Michael Spinks, for example, one of his training things was a round was 3 minutes. He would do 3-minute sprint. Then he would walk for the amount of time that would normally be between rounds. And then he would do another 3-minute sprint. And this is one of the ways he trained himself, okay? Because back then the rounds were 15 rounds, all right? And to build his conditioning up, all right? A fighter like Rocky Marciano, undefeated heavyweight champion, 49-0, he ran 5 miles every single day. Every day he ran 5 miles, all right? And if you watch any of his fights, you see he's relentless. His conditioning is amazing. He never stops for 15 rounds, okay? It's impressive, all right? So, as a police officer, conditioning was important to me. And believe me, I worked with many cops that were not in good physical condition. But think about it, all right? Civilian, you walk around all day in your normal clothes. Me as a police officer, I'm carrying anywhere from 20 to 30 pounds of extra gear. For those of you that don't know, as soon as you put on a bullet-resistant vest, okay, body armor, all right, your blood pressure goes up, and it stays up until you take the vest off. So think about that for a second. So, you have a 20, 25-year police career, several days a week. You're wearing body armor, your blood pressure is up, okay? So you want to have good conditioning, all right? You're carrying a gun belt, has a lot of tools on it, all right? Weighs you down, All right. Now keep that in mind that you're carrying that 20 to 30 pounds of extra gear, and now you may have to chase a criminal. You may have to be jumping over fences, running on all different types of terrain, up and down stairs. Okay. If you're not in good physical condition, you're going to be in trouble. I'll give you an example. A person I work with by the name of Bismarck Borquez. Shorter than me, and I'm no giant. I'm only about 5'7", right? He was, a couple inches shorter than me. The guy was in phenomenal shape. And he was calling in a pursuit one time, and I heard it. I happened to be at the next station on the train. So when I pulled in, I jumped out, not down, and I immediately ran downstairs, and I started, going in the direction that he was saying he was running in. And it was several blocks away. I finally got there, and just as I got there, he had the guy in handcuffs. The guy was physically much larger than him. So, I took the guy, I held the guy that he had, it was give him a little bit of a break, and we started walking back to the station, and I said to Bismarck, you all right? You all right? And the guy, Bismarck says, yeah, I'm fine. He didn't fight me. And before I could say anything to the criminal, he turned to me and said, this guy chased me 7 blocks. And when I turned around, he wasn't even winded. And I said, if he could chase me 7 blocks, he could probably kick my ass. So I just put my hands behind my back. So I'll never forget that story, right? Because again, sometimes, a lot of chases were short, but sometimes they were long. And then after you were in the chase, you had to engage in a physical fight. So you're already huffing and puffing from the running, and if it was cold weather, it was 100 times worse. Your throat's dry, it's burning, a lot of things. So that conditioning in terms of for combat plays a big factor. So when your overweight instructor says to you, being in shape doesn't matter. As long as you have good technique, you should be able to defeat the opponent. Yeah, okay, that's what we call a pipe dream. That's a guy making an excuse for being fat and overweight, all right? Again, we're teaching martial arts. It's a physical art. We should be in good physical condition. So, in terms of combat, that's an important element to have good physical condition, right? Being able to stay in the fight. When you go through law enforcement training, I'm sure Army, military is the same way. The discussion of staying in the fight, okay? Again, in terms of the military, that might mean more than likely a gunfight, all right? But in terms of law enforcement, it's more often than not that physical confrontation when you're engaged with a physical life and death struggle. Stay in the fight. Your conditioning plays a big factor about staying in the fight, all right? So just some things to keep in mind. Some other types of conditioning. So in martial arts, a big type of conditioning is body conditioning. What do I mean by that? Well, in the case of Isshinryu Karate, we have the Kotekitai exercises, right? Which most people in Isshinryu learn at some point. I don't know that modern Isshinryu practitioners are actually doing a lot of Kotekitai. And frankly, that's a huge mistake. We have this idea, like I was told, it's to condition your forearm so when you block your opponent's punch, you can hurt his arm. That's complete BS. Okay, the body conditioning exercises in martial arts is to make your body physically tough. So if your body is physically stronger and tougher, that means you can generate more power. Your body's able to take more. It can generate more. All right. So one of my students in New York, a woman a few years ago, she does feeding crane, which feeding crane has a pretty good overall body conditioning exercise. We start with the wrist, outside of the forearm, inside of the forearm, shoulders, backs of the elbows, okay, sides of the body, outside of the thigh, top of the thigh. We do the calf. So it covers a lot. It's an overall body conditioning where we're actually banging body parts into each other. Now, Are we banging body parts so hard that we're trying to injure each other? No, that's not the point of body conditioning. Body conditioning should be a slow buildup. And what it should do is it should toughen your muscles, and more importantly, it should strengthen your bones. So that shock of the hit sends a message to your bones that your bones need to be stronger. So the bones actually will strengthen, all right? It's the same thing, right? You pound the Maiara, and you pound it, and depending on how you hit it, your knuckles, like my right knuckles, they're pretty big. And if I compare the two, they're pretty similar. But you'll see my middle knuckle especially is pretty big. And this is from years of Maiara, obviously, and also actually hitting people, all right? So what my knuckles basically said was, oh boy, he's putting a lot of pressure here. We have to put more calcium there. We have to put more bone there. So the knuckles slowly grew larger, okay? They slowly grew larger. They're not growing anymore. There's enough there that when I hit something, no problem. I don't feel anything. It doesn't hurt my hand, all right? I've never hurt my hand hitting a Maiara or hitting a person, all right? So if you condition it properly, that shouldn't be an issue. Chen style Tai Chi Chuan, we also have body conditioning, probably closer to feeding crane than it is the Ishinru. Again, I know Uechi-ryu Karate puts a high emphasis on body conditioning. Again, my philosophy is once I learn the body conditioning and feeding crane, I don't feel I need to do that at a seminar anymore. I've already done it. Why do I have to do it again? Okay, I'm doing it all the time. I'm training it all the time. It's like Koteki Tai. If I come into an Ishinru dojo and they say, Sensei, we were never shown the Koteki Tai. Okay, fine. I'll take a half hour, okay, and teach them the exercises, explain to them what they're trying to accomplish, and then that's it. Because again, it's something that it's training. It's something you train at. It's not something you do once and don't do it again. So in my dojo, we probably do Koteki Tai every third or fourth class. Depending. We have some other conditioning drills we do in my Ishinru classes. Sometimes I actually do the feeding crane body conditioning drills in the Ishinru classes as something a little different, all right? Because again, it's training. It's a body conditioning. I want my students to be strong. I want their bodies to be very strong. Another thing that helped my conditioning is break falling. So I've been doing jiu-jitsu for forever, okay, about 40 years now, all right? And, when I was a lot younger, we were taking upwards of 100 to 200 falls a night in jiu-jitsu class. And, I had visiting teachers of other martial arts come in and would say to me, hey, could I participate or view a jiu-jitsu class? And I would say, sure. And they would inevitably say, wow, you guys take some really tough falls in this art. Yeah, it's not like the Brazilian jiu-jitsu. All right, you're taking some hard falls. But again, if you're trained how to fall, if you're ukemi, your break falling is good, you don't get hurt. So here I'm taking 100, 150, 200 falls, and I'm jumping up every time. But my body's hitting that mat, and I'm slapping out, and my whole body's hitting the mat. And basically, it's sending the message to my body that, oh boy, we've got to be stronger. The body has to be stronger. Your body reacts to that, and it toughens up. I believe it's called wolf syndrome. An example of it would be if I'm a carpenter and I'm hammering with my right hand all day. Initially, you're working all day. Your wrist is, it's going to be really sore. But eventually, your body says, boy, this guy's hammering. He's hammering with that right hand. We need to make that wrist stronger. And all of a sudden, the right wrist gets bigger. Okay? The bones get stronger. Because you're swinging that hammer, the grip gets stronger. Maybe the hand muscles get a little bigger. So it's your body's reaction to a need it senses. Okay, the human body's an amazing thing. All right, don't underestimate what it can do for you if you apply certain practices. All right, so in terms of this body conditioning. Again, it's something you want to ease into. You don't want to overdo it. We have in the dojo, if someone joins the dojo and we initially do kateki tai, it's usually, I refer to them as love taps, okay? You shouldn't be driving in. However, when I'm doing it with someone, I tell them to try to break my arm. I tell them to try to strike my arm as hard as they can, all right? And again, it's about building up. It's not about the person after the first night they do kateki tai. If they come into the next class and they have massive bruises on their arms, no good. No good at all, all right? If someone comes in and has a little bit of bruising, okay, they don't do kateki tai again until the bruises heal. All right, that's the way you have to train. If you continue to bruise yourself, you're going to create a chronic condition in the body. You don't want a chronic condition. Chronic conditions lead to long-time injuries. All right, and again, when you're younger, you think you're okay. It's not when you're younger. It's when you wake up when you're 50 years old, and now all of a sudden, as you get out of bed, you go, boy, what's that pain from? Well, that's pain from is something probably stupid you were doing for the last 10 or 15, 20 years. So you want to train smart. You want to condition smart. Don't overdo it. Maiara training. I still hit the Maiara to this day, not nearly as much as I did when I was younger, all right? But when I was younger, I hit it a lot. I was never interested, and you can see my knuckles. I don't have calluses on my knuckles. My skin's very smooth, okay? About a year ago, I was at lunch with a senior Japanese sensei, and he turned to me and said, Calandra sensei, I just want to compliment you on your knuckles. So I said, oh, because I don't have the big, ugly scars and calluses on my knuckles? And he says, yeah. I said, yeah, I never felt the need for it. I said, first off, I don't like the way it looks. And second off, I don't think it makes me punch any harder. I totally unnecessary. I've punched, I can't even comprehend how many people I've punched for real. Never cut my knuckles. Okay? So, if you tear the knuckle on a Maiara, you can't hit the Maiara until it's completely healed. Now, if you decide I want those knuckles, I want those calluses on there, I want that look, be my guest. God bless you, all right? It's not something I ever had any interest in. I could tell you now it means nothing in combat. It means nothing in combat, all right? The founder of Vishnu had a huge callus on the side of his hand. He wanted to develop that. Again, God bless him, okay? He could drive a 10-penny nail into a solid block of wood until he tore the callus off. The whole callus came off. Okay, well, now there's not that hard rock-like piece of callus there. All right. So again, I think overdoing the conditioning can be harmful to the body. So I don't get crazy with the conditioning where I'm driving in full force kicks into the outer thigh. No, it's a build-up process. All right, with all the different conditioning I do. Some Ishinru sensei used to say, hit the Maiara 1,000 times a day. Okay, it's not healthy. All right, it's just not healthy. All right, go out, develop your particular Maiara training regimen, and kind of stick to that. It's the same thing. I still do knuckle push-ups. People have this idea that the knuckle push-ups condition your knuckles. It's very slight. It's really about strengthening the wrist. All right, so again, another thing to strengthen the wrist, something we're going to need on impact. We don't want the wrist to buckle when we hit. So these various conditioning drills we do are extremely important. In terms of other types of conditioning, you can work a heavy bag, but you can work it where you're working it in combinations, where you time yourself. Let's say you go for 2 or 3 minutes, take a break, go for 2 or 3 minutes, take a break, and build up your cardiovascular, build up your conditioning, okay? While not getting sloppy technique. We don't want sloppy technique. We want everything to be very, very solid, all right? A word on conditioning that leads to other things. So, for instance, breaking. People love to break stuff. All right, karate guys love to break boards, bricks, concrete blocks. Okay, When I was younger, I did some breaking. I never broke bricks or concrete blocks. I had no interest. I barely had any interest in breaking boards. I hear, oh, it's a gauge of power. The only thing that's a gauge of power is when you hit another human being. If you hit another human being and you hurt him, you have good power. Breaking a board is not a gauge on how you're going to hit a human body. Okay, so let's be clear on that. All right. I've seen a lot of strange breaking things in my time. I'm friends with Mike Reeves. I went to his dojo one time, taught a brief seminar. I mean, he's a great guy. Amazing what he can break. God bless him. I have no interest in that, all right? But I did see him one time. Someone bought him compressed concrete blocks, and he set them up, and he was planning on going through like 3 or 4, and he could only go through 1. And he hit this thing multiple times, and every time he hit it after the first time, I was wincing. Like, I was like, oh, my God, right? And afterwards, I walked over to him. I says, man, that stuff was tough, huh? He says, Mike, that was some hard shit, okay? And another time, I was at a seminar where I was actually teaching one of the seminars. It was a group of instructors teaching seminars. And a guy decides he's going to break a coconut. I turn to my students and I go, a coconut? Do you guys have any idea how hard a coconut is? Plus, it's round. How are you getting it to stay? And I was like, okay. And he held the coconut and he hit it as hard as he can with a shuto strike. And he broke the bones in his hand that the bones came out of the skin. And I literally cringed when he did it. I cringed, I was like, and I just for the life of me couldn't understand the need to break inanimate objects. Now again, this is my personal opinion. I don't begrudge anybody that wants to do anything. If breaking a coconut brings you joy, if breaking the necks of bottles off a bottle brings you joy, if breaking bricks brings you joy, God bless you. When I was a young, I think I was probably a green belt or a brown belt in Ishinru, one of the Ishinru sensei came down to cover class one night, and at the end of class, when we're going to bow out, he took out a little bag and he laid 2 pieces, 2 half bricks on the floor, and then he put a red brick across it. And he gave a talk about, if you're feeling depressed and you're not feeling too good about yourself and you're feeling down in the dumps, what I do is I break a brick. And he proceeded to break the brick. And, as a young 17-year-old, I was impressive as hell, right? But I still, for myself, I just had no interest in doing that. For those of you that don't know, I'm also a trained artist. So I worked for 7 years in the commercial art field before I decided to become a police officer. My degree is in art and advertising design. I still draw, I still paint. Not as much as I'd like to, but I still do. So I had no interest in really damaging my hands. So, just something to keep in mind. I've seen certain Okinawan sensei who can break boards with a Nukite strike, which is impressive. I mean, look, it's impressive. Okay. But then I look at their fingers and their fingers are all gnarled and mangled. I don't want that for myself. I'm already going to have arthritis in my hand from the fights I've had and everything else. I don't want to add to it. I don't want to deform my body, okay, to be able to break a board. So I can tell you, I used Nukite strikes in combat numerous times, okay? But I used it to the throat. And the way I used to condition my hand, and you can try this, right, is I would do this. So my fingers are stiff, and I'd hit it into the palm of my other hand. And I do it with both hands, okay? And anytime I struck somebody with a Nukite strike in the throat, I never hurt my fingers, okay? But I'm not going to the ribs. I'm not going, anywhere on the body where it's hard. That's not, the Nukite strike is designed to go to soft areas. So, just take a step back and just ask yourself, why am I doing this crazy conditioning that's deforming myself or possibly causing my injury? And the answer is probably a lot of it has to do with ego. Well, I want to be able to break that brick. I want to be able to do something that other people can't do. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that makes you happy, God bless you. But I can tell you now, in combat, it's irrelevant. Okay. There's certain types of conditioning you want to do that's important to combat. Deforming your body, not a good idea. Hope you've enjoyed this one on conditioning. Hope it maybe give you some food for thought. Maybe may reevaluate some of your own training practices. All right. Thanks. Please like, subscribe, share, consider becoming a member. All right. Don't forget, I'll be in New York, January 18th to 21st for seminars. You can reach out to Jimmy Waller. It'll be in the details section. All right. Thanks. See you in the next podcast.